My name is Sindupa De Silva, and I am a Fisheries Research Assistant for the Missouri Department of Conservation. It all started from when I used to be a volunteer for the department, and I got an internship with the Fisheries Division, and from there on I got this position. A day-to-day at the office could be anything, which is the beauty of it. Going down into the caves, I think the coolest thing is just working with a federally endangered species, the grotto sculpin. It's a really rare fish species that's also very unique. I think that is a very awesome opportunity, and also the fact that not many people get to do what we get to do. Being down in caves and studying fish populations in itself is very awesome. My interest for this field goes back to my passion for working with natural resources. I believe that flora and fauna, they don't have a voice for themselves. So we as human beings should be the voice for them. We should represent them, try to conserve them, try to protect them so that they can coexist with human beings on this planet that we share. So personally, working with endangered species is important because those species are on the brink of going extinct. They will completely disappear from this planet. So protecting them and doing the work to conserve them so that they last longer on this planet's surface, I think is very important.
I've always been really into nature and wildlife, and I've wanted to do this since I was a little kid, and I ended up going to college to do this, and I was given the opportunity to be the grad student on this grotto sculpin project, and it's really cool to come down and work with something no one else sees.
At the end of the day, when you go home, not many people can say that I've been about half a mile underground the whole day in cold water chasing a fish that's only found in this one particular place. I think that is very rewarding and a blessing in itself. As you stand here, you could sometimes hear the trucks going above your head, which is a little scary, but gives you an idea of how far you're down in the ground and just tells you that it's a whole different world. Being on the river obviously is an entirely different experience compared to being in a cave. Simply, you have so much more open space and a lot of water to work with. I really enjoyed because of the freedom that you feel being out on the water. But then not only that, when you think of fish communities and what kind of fish that are out there, I find that very interesting too. Especially the pallid sturgeon project, when you think about such a rare fish species that's also a very prehistoric and ancient species that lives in these waters, I find that to be very fascinating in itself. We're trying to trawl and catch pallid sturgeon right now. These fish can grow up to 6 feet in length. However, the ones we'll catch will more than likely be smaller fish. The pallid sturgeon is a federally endangered species found in the Mississippi River. The river itself has changed a lot, and that continues to change. We have progressed a lot from how bad it used to look like with all the contaminants and waste material going into the river. We've cleaned our act up, and we continue to do so. Fish communities help us understand how that water is changing, how the river is changing. So a lot of people get to travel across the bridge to Illinois, and they also get to stand by downtown Cape Girardeau and look at the river, which are both very beautiful views. However, I find myself in a very lucky opportunity to actually be able to travel on the river, look at Cape Girardeau from a different perspective, and also travel under the bridge. Coming from Sri Lanka, which is about 26,000 miles away from Cape Girardeau, Missouri, it was a very eye-opening experience coming from a very small island and then coming to a very, very big nation. You know, the United States of America, the landmass is just huge compared to Sri Lanka. But coming over here and finding this wonderful opportunity to work with the Missouri Department of Conservation, I've been able to actually find a passion working with fisheries. but my time here in the United States is determined by the work that I get to do because I'm on a visa. Getting into the workforce, I thank the conservation department of the state. We all watch out for each other. We help each other in all our different projects. Not only those guys, but even our supervisors. If not for them, we wouldn't have this opportunity. I aspire to continue to work and be able to give back to the environment, give back to the state, give back to the country, and hopefully someday take it to an international level where I be able to take the things that I learned here from Sri Lanka to Cape Girardeau, Missouri, to the state of Missouri, and then beyond.
Tour de Corn is a fun, family-oriented ride through Southeast Missouri. It's something that started as a dream by a local farmer and a local community organizer that has just grown into this great event that draws people in from all over the country.
At the time, in 2000, Mike Bryant came to the office. I was working for the city of East Prairie in the tourism area. And he came to the office and he said, "I've got something I want you to consider." He said, "We need a bicycle ride." And we talked about it. And we decided to do it involved with the Sweet Corn Festival. The first year, Mike said, "Plan on 50. I said, "Mike, I don't want 50. I want 100. If we're going to do this, I want 100. He said, "You can forget it. There's no way you will have 100. Well, we did. The first year, in June of 2001, we had 135 riders. The first routes went to the south into Mississippi County. That was before the 211 flood, and we had houses and churches and really neat places to stop. And they visited the river and Civil War memorials and Big Oak Park, and it was a different ride than what we have today. 2013, we took a huge leap. We had gotten up in the 800s. And we were advertised in a couple of magazines, national magazines. One of them was Bicycling Magazine, and they named us one of the top 100 rides in the nation in June for a 100-mile ride. And the next year, we topped the 1,000. We went, I think it was 1,024.
And then in the last year or so, the original founders realized it was time to pass on the reins to a new generation, and so feel very fortunate to be able to be a part of that group. But the one thing that I think we've learned this year is Tour de Corn is much bigger than any one person or even just a few people. It is scores and scores of people from all across Southeast Missouri, communities from East Prairie and beyond that really come in. Hundreds of volunteers that day are out on the roads patrolling, making sure our riders stay safe, giving them the hospitality that they've just come to expect from the Tour de Corn over all of these years. One of the things that most appeals to our riders about the Tour de Corn is that you actually get to go out into the countryside of Southeast Missouri. Sometimes it's along the river, sometimes it's through cornfields, through flat country roads. And so that's great for a lot of riders who may be looking to get started in bicycling. And so that way they can kind of get their foot in the water and get to be out into the gorgeous Southeast Missouri countryside. And in addition to being just a great ride, our riders really love the charity aspect of it. So once everything's said and done, we're really fortunate to be able to give thousands of dollars each year to local charities such as youth organizations, schools, different community organizations, but then also to some national charities such as St. Jude has been a recipient in the past. And so it really makes the Tour de Corn extend just beyond that one day in June to really have an impact back on the community as well. From the very beginning, the rider has been central to what we want to accomplish with Tour de Corn. We want to make sure that he or she has a great experience, a safe experience, and just enjoy all that Southeast Missouri has to offer in terms of the landscape and the people.
It started when I was so young, and my grandma was actually one of the founders of it. My grandpa was always super involved and always a huge support to her. And then just the memories that we've built year after year, riding in it, being a part in it, and all of the prep and work that goes into it just make it the whole thing a really rewarding and exciting experience.
I think one of the cool things around here is just that people who are coming from, you know, bike riding in a big city or doing all these things where they have to travel somewhere to bike ride, and they come out here and you can just bike ride through everything. And they get to see the corn, and they get to see what it's like in a small rural town, and the kind of family atmosphere. And so once they come once, and they're like, oh, hey, this is a lot more relaxing than dodging, you know, cars in a city, so I think I'll come back next year. So I would say that the best part is the food, along with just the rest stops, getting to hang out with people, and you know a lot of the people from the actual working side of the rest stops. But then you also meet people from very literally all over the country, and sometimes a couple of other countries, and just get to sit there and talk with them. And most of the time they're a lot better at bike riding than I am. But it's cool to hear their stories, and like, how on earth did they hear about this thing that's in the middle of the boot heel of Missouri, and they're from, you know, Florida, or they're from Texas or somewhere else. And that's interesting to me.
So my advice to anyone who's not familiar with the ride is just to do it. Because there's such a diversity. If you're a well-trained biker, there's routes that will challenge you, and there's routes that you will enjoy. Or if you literally just learned to ride a bike last month, there's a route that you can do and that you'll enjoy and you'll have fun. If you have little kids, strap them onto the back and bring them. There's tons of families riding. So really, whatever your situation is, there's a route for you and you'll enjoy it.
The growth of Tour de Corn over the years has just been something that really touches the hearts of all of us involved with it, because to go from something that was just an idea from a local farmer and our local community organizer to be something where hundreds and hundreds of riders are coming in each year. It's neat to see that growth, and we attribute it all to the local community, because the people just roll out the hospitality. I think they have as much fun as the riders sometimes, just out there showing off this community that they're so proud of.
I think Tour de Corn has a personality, and it has developed it over the years. The number one thing, hospitality. Our rest stops with entertainment, the food. Everybody tells us it's just like going home.
The digital media class started out really in the early 80s, when the first cable company came into town and was wanting to provide their services to the people of Perryville. In the early 90s, they decided to add a program to the Career Center, which is the vocational programs that is offered by the school district, and they decided to find a different program, and they thought they could utilize TV and video productions, which is what the name of the program used to be. And here is the Marshall 7-inch monitor. As you know, when you hook up, the class is comprised of technical things where the students have to learn about cameras and the different settings on the camera to get a good image and good sound. And then we branch off into, after you get the images, what do you do with them? You edit those together. And so they learn how to edit using a non-linear editing program. And we use Final Cut Pro. We work on Apple products. They do things from traditional animation to digital animation. They do documentaries every year in the spring semester. And they also do a final project. And the final project can be anything they think of. Every year we'll look at the program, and I have an advisory committee that we meet twice a year, and they give me suggestions, and I look at trends that are going on in the industry, and I try to get something. For instance, drones. Drones are very big now. They've been big for a few years, but it wasn't until last year that we got a drone. And so the kids can now fly a drone under my supervision and see if they like that, because that's exploding. That's a new way to do aerial shots that is affordable for a lot of people. A lot of my students that go on to even college say that they're usually a semester or two ahead of other people that didn't have a program in school or just switched recently. They have some knowledge of the terminology, some knowledge of how the profession works and its hierarchies from above the line talent to below the line talent and things like that. We are hoping to, in my case, get a new facility because we're pretty crammed up here from where the class began. When I first got here, we had 3 field cameras and 3 studio cameras. Now we have 6 field cameras of high quality, and we just recently got 3 new studio cameras and new studio equipment in the control room, and we're just running out of space to put everything because we do our best to keep everything working, and most things still work, so you hate to throw things out, but occasionally you do have to get rid of some things. We have no ball games and things that we could play if we wanted to. We run the public access channel, which mainly is a bulletin board for things that go around the community, and we also play our content on it, but we have in recent years been expanding where we've got a presence on YouTube and Facebook and now Twitter and some of the other things where people can find our content and view it. That gives the students another way to get their work out there, because what they're doing in the 2 years here, they're creating a reel that they can take to an employer.
This is PVTV News, and our first story today is about Hurricane.
When I was growing up, my dad was the head football coach at French Camp. It's just a small town. It's located off the Natchez Trace Parkway. There's about 250 people live there. But it was a very great experience, I think, just because of how everybody knew each other so well in the area. You know, it was kind of like everybody was family there. For as far back as I can remember, my dad had me, you know, just in the yard throwing the ball and just had me started me young at a young age. And I fell in love with the sport because I was always around these older guys that were playing the sport, and I looked up to them, you know, it made me always want to be a football player. I don't think that he pushed me or made me do it. I think that I loved it that much, but he was there, the steady force that kept me going, you know, when nobody else was looking.
Well, we were looking for a quarterback because we wanted some competition, and I had gotten a phone call from the head coach of his junior college. His name is Ken Karcher. He actually played quarterback for the Chiefs. So he told me about Jesse, and of course, since he played in the NFL, I think he knows what a good quarterback's like. And, so we offered him in his office, and he was excited about it. And then the season played out. They had a great season, ended up to a bowl game. But at the end, he wasn't interested. So, you know, he said, "Coach, I'm not going to be able to come up to Missouri." So we had moved on, and then later in December, got a phone call back, and he said, "Coach, his dad actually called me. If the offer's still there, we want to do it." And I said, "Well, it's late. You know, we don't have time for official visits. We don't need one." So he actually committed to come here before and never saw it. And so the first time he ever saw it was in January when he came to school with his wife.
I met my wife, of course, we're a very small high school. So I knew of her ever since we were in junior high, elementary. I knew of her, but I didn't really talk to her or get to hang out around her much till high school years. And, you know, it was just a typical high school relationship. You know, it was kind of goofy at first because freshman, sophomore in high school. You know, kind of on and off, but I mean, it was just one of those funny things. But ended up my senior and her junior year, getting more serious and realizing that, you know, hey, this might be my wife one day, you know. I knew I wanted to marry her just because of the woman she was and the way she handled herself. Just the type of character she had. She was very joyful about life. She loved other people and she loved helping other people. And, you know, she was very good about letting her light shine throughout the school, and it was very evident, not just to me, but to other people. If I could pick anything when I was done, I'd want to keep playing football, obviously, but we got to be realistic. Even though there's a chance of that, it's probably pretty small. But man, I want to live back home. I want to be around both our families. I've thought about coaching. I'd love to coach, but at the same time, you got to to be a head coach, you'd have to have a teaching degree. But I think one day I'll definitely be plugged in somewhere. Probably not a head coaching role, but I feel like I do have a lot of knowledge that I can share with other people just because I've been in 3 different systems as a quarterback, 2 different junior colleges, and I've played here. So I feel like I've picked up a lot of knowledge just from all these different coaches that I have. And that could really affect like just a small town school like French Camp.
Well, I hope you know, he continues to play, to be honest with you. I really think he could play at the next level, and if he's not, that's fine too. I'm not trying to put any pressure on him. But I've told every scout that's come in that I think he can, and if given that opportunity. And so I think if we have a good year, which, you know, you're not going to have an NFL quarterback on your team and not have a good year, right? So if we have a good year, and I anticipate we do, I think he will get a look and hopefully get that opportunity. But I know this, you know, no matter what, you know, he's going to be a man that stands for his faith and how to treat his wife, and the values that him and his family represent, I know will still be intact.
Near the river campus of Southeast Missouri State University, 2 large metal forms emerge from the earth, impossible to miss. This sculpture, titled Commence, invites visitors to begin their journeys in the thriving riverfront community of Cape Girardeau. But this sculpture is also significant to the university because it allowed several students to begin their journeys as professional artists.
I don't know how long ago it was now, but quite a few years back, we developed a public art committee in the city of Cape Girardeau to help us come up with ideas to integrate art into the public. One of our goals was not just to have temporary artwork that, you know, goes up for a year and then comes down and then a whole new wave comes in, but was to start to look into where are some places or what are some sculptures that we would want to have permanent.
The Fountain Street Roundabout was recognized as a possible location for a permanent sculpture. Because it is located near the river campus, the city approached the university about participating in the project. The university was interested, but wanted students to be involved. It was decided that art professor Chris Wubena would design the sculpture, and then students would learn to build it.
We went through a whole process of meeting with the mayor, the city manager, various people with the city and the university, and chose a design that is kind of like a gateway.
The students quickly got to work building the Grand Gateway. Long summer days were spent measuring, welding, and grinding to bring Wubena's triumphant and optimistic vision to life. Finally, on July 24, 2017, the sculpture was ready to be moved to its final home.
This project has become something that makes me see that I am a good student and that I deserve to work on something like this, and that that my professor is willing to invest in me so then I can become an artist and can do public work myself, and then eventually move on with that, have an amazing portfolio, and be confident with everything that I do because I have the support system with other students and with Professor Wubena.
I've learned that doing a project on this kind of scale definitely takes more work than just one person, and it takes a lot of opinions and thinking. So you definitely can't be alone, and it's always good to have help and advice, and it's always good to definitely double check what you're doing. And also, even though a lot of the work is tedious, it's definitely, the outcome is worth it. Just seeing it up now makes us all feel a lot better and happy to see it, that the hard work's paid off.
Was done by students, training for themselves for the future and under the direction of Professor Wubino. And now it's a reality, and I just look at it and I say, wow, it was a large undertaking. It wasn't just a small task, and it took some time. This has been underway from the beginning, about 2 years, and just very proud to be a part of this partnership. This is, to me, is a welcoming. It's a piece of art. It's a welcoming. Come to our city, and you're welcome here.